Hello and welcome to episode 24 of the HamCorp training manual. In this episode, we set up plasma power and dedicated tridium production. We also set up the research station and HPCA and craft the ZPM energy hatch and the first crystal mainframes. We do not get to the modular combustion frame. Unfortunate. So, with a little bit of math, I have figured out how many large plasma turbines I need to fully consume the helium plasma that I'm making. Admittedly, I'm not sure my tridium and deuterium supply can keep up with running this the whole time, but if it can't, then I'm just going to scale that up. For 2 Mark I fusion reactors, I make 555.55 helium plasma per second, and to consume all of that, I need 7 large plasma turbines with the Dragon Steel turbines. So that's exactly what I'm going to make. This is going to make a grand total of, I think it's 2.5 million EU per tick, which is honestly less than I expected. But that's like 10 million FE per tick, so it should be a pretty decent surplus. Even when I'm like auto-crafting big things and my HIFs are going and stuff. I'm gonna make these LPTs, and then I'm gonna set them up over here. They're basically gonna be set up exactly like the gas turbines. I'll also add some redstone logic and a Lapatronic supercapacitor, or whatever, power substation, so that it's not running all the time. It only runs when I need it to run and only if I have enough helium. And once that's set up, I want to move on to the more interesting thing, at least it's more interesting to me, the modular combustion frame. But we'll come back to that. In fact, I can just request one, but I don't think I'm going to because I'm probably going to power fail if I do. So, LPTs first. I just want to point out really quick that the Dragon Steel recipe is ZPM, which means I can't do it in the HIFs because I don't have a ZPM energy hatch yet. I could do it in this lone quad EBF, but I'd rather make a bunch more ABSs and do it in that, and then once I have ZPM energy hatches, I'll swap to the HIFs. Because if you remember, I did the analysis a while ago, HIFs are better as long as your mixers are not a bottleneck. And to be fair, they are at this point, but we're just gonna conveniently ignore that. But I'm gonna make more ABSs. I only have 4. I think I should bring that up to 16. I'm gonna make 12 more. Man, this is why I love GregTech. Like, I just requested 12 ABSs. I just clicked start. It just worked. Like, that's so awesome. GregTech gameplay loop is so good. Oh man, these turbines took a while. They're really slow right now. I should probably passive them. Or not the turbines, but you know, the Dragon Steel should probably be passived. Anyway, here I have my plasma turbines. They are all set up. I have 7. There's space for more, and I can expand if I need. The input and output is pretty straightforward. Helium, plasma, helium. The redstone logic is basically the same as the nitrobenzene turbines because this also has spin-up time. So I have a detector on this substation, but the difference is it goes into an AND gate, and it's ANDed with this level emitter, which emits a signal if I have at least 250 buckets of helium plasma. So what this means is the turbines are only going to run if I have, you know, the usual power RS latch conditions, and I have enough helium plasma to run these. So let's test this out. Let's see how good this is. Oh yeah, 360,000 EU per tick each. It could be better though, but it's good. Honestly, I probably need another gargantuan storage because this is probably going to fill up relatively quickly now. Oh, but this is awesome. Now I feel safe to request a modular combustion frame. Awesome. This is of course just the frame. The frame itself doesn't do anything. Well, it does, but I still need to have the actual modules that go into the, you know, the modular part. I could skip a tier and try to go straight to the Supreme Combustion module, but that, I don't know. Feels like I shouldn't. I can make some Unreals, why not? This needs white fuming nitric acid, which I think I looked at before and I think it was pretty easy to make. But this is a pretty cheap structure to me right now. Palaridium, Unreal engines. Hey wait, that's like the game engine. And that's kind of it. I do need these modular conduit terminals, and I need to do a little math to see how much power this actually outputs. But honestly, I could just make a big-ass conduit terminal and just call it a day. That's also an option. But I don't know. This one's looking tempting to skip one and go straight to Supreme. Because I'm basically at ZPM, right? Like, I can make all of this stuff, pretty much. ZPM parts are just Ostenda, which I can make now, osmiridium and europium. So it is doable. You know what? I don't know. I think I will skip a tier. Oh wait, it needs research station. Okay, fine. That at least gives me an excuse to do a little bit of progression this episode instead of just power. So this is good for now. I will do the modular combustion stuff today. First, research and ZPM. I think I will be skipping the Unreal tier of modules. To get the ZPM, I need Ostenda, I need Naquata alloy, and machine hulls, which are of course made of Naquata alloy, which is why it's a requirement. These are actually kind of expensive then, because the alloy is an alloy of Naquata, osmiridium, and trinium. So it's not that cheap actually. I may find that I need to scale some things up along the way. But once I have the machine hull, making the energy hatch needs research, like actual research, not just a scan. So I will be forced to make trinium coils first, and then the uranium rhodium dinaquidide ingots, and then I can do the HPCA and research stations. Ooh, that's gonna be a lot of power spent, but I have a lot of power generated now. Cool, I will get to work. We are now officially in ZPM. And I am very, very sad to report that I do need to make a ZPM assembler, because I need it to make the coils to make the energy hatch. So it's not possible to tier skip into this. Ooh, here's a little recipe thing I should probably address. The ZPM electric motor needs a full stack of europium wire, right? But remember, my assembly line setup needs me to push at least 4 of these at a time. I don't know how this is gonna work. 256 at once. I don't know if that's gonna distribute nicely. It seems like it's fine because I've been doing it for my LUV electric motors, so I think that's okay, but I know that one of these recipes doesn't like it. I think it's this one. The sensors and emitters, they have the rhodium foil. Let's actually look at that recipe really quick, because this expects rhodium foil in 2 different locations. So really in the pattern, this should be split into 2 separate rhodium foil thingies, like slots. So this pattern has been problematic, and I think that's why. To make sure that things don't stack, by the way, this is more important for when I get the compact assembly line, which can do stocking buses, but the way you stop these 2 things from stacking is by changing the name on one of them. So if I rename this to, I don't know, 0 or 1, then it no longer stacks with rhodium foil, because they have different names. Anyway, this is looking a little bit into the future, but you can do this with a forming press and a casting mold. Anyway, just a little future issue that I was, or I guess it's a current issue actually, that I've been reminded of. Using a single block assembler. I really don't like it. Okay, well, I'm gonna make 42 trinium coils in this single block assembler. I'll be back in 3 weeks or however long this takes me. Ugh. While that's happening, I really need to address the tridium production rate, because it's really bad. This is the bottleneck, this vacuum freezer making liquid ender air. But to be honest, I think because I'm now relying on this for power, I'm gonna take it out of this building, or I'm gonna leave this here just as it is, but I'm gonna make a new setup nearby that is in a more scalable configuration. Like, I don't know, like in the middle here or something, or I don't know, somewhere. Maybe above the plasma turbines makes some sense. So I'm gonna make a bunch of them, a bunch of distillation towers, or actually large fractionating distilleries at this point. Some probably bulk blast chillers? Or no, these things, Arctic chilling units. Bulk blast chillers are also possible, but not quite yet. So I'll make these. This is a bit faster. And I'm gonna set up tritium and deuterium, because I actually don't really make enough to keep these going all the time. Which is a problem, because that means my power situation is not fixed. I really shouldn't have made 16 HIFs and just juiced them all out. Or maybe I should have, but I should have made way more power. Yeah, this is coming along. I will explain it shortly, but I finally decided to make the multi-block air collector, basically. This did need an assembly line recipe, and the scan was an IV gas collector. You know, I'd be building every single one of these by hand at least once, so let's do that, and then I'll explain this. Okay, this has been set up and it's been optimized. What I mean by that is I make as much tritium as I need and not too much more. I do make an excess, but it's not insane. Basically what I did is I looked at how much helium plasma I make per second, because that's a flat number based on the fusion reactor tier and number of fusion reactors. And that's 555.55 helium plasma per second. And basically I just propagated that number back into tritium, into liquid ender air, into endstone dust and nether air, into netherrack and air. And I made as many machines as I need, and I'm making them run at the number of parallels and the voltage that I need to keep up, basically. Keep up or excess, and that's what I have. So there is some wiggle room to increase the speed here. The macerators are comically fast, and they are not the bottleneck. I think the bottleneck really is... It's not really even a bottleneck. There is no bottleneck because it's keeping up. The bottleneck is how fast I can consume the tritium that I'm making. In other words, I am super good on plasma, and these two fusion reactors will be running forever, constantly. Okay, so that's power. Now back to what I was doing before, which was... What was that? Ah, yes. Making trinium coils in a single block assembler. Ugh. Okay, I'll be back in 3 weeks or however long it's been since I made that joke. Finally. Trinium. I can make this, and this, and this, and this, and more importantly, these two. I'll be back when I have them crafted. Yeah. About that. Alright, got my research station and my HPCA. I don't know where to set this up. It doesn't really need to be in autocrafting or anything. It also doesn't really need its own special building because it's not that big of a deal. But I do need to put it somewhere, and it's looking like the best spot is here in Ham Tower, which I still need to add interiors to. But I'm going to set it up over here because I think that's kind of sensible. I'm just going to have to come here to do scans, and that's kind of basically it, I think. So let me build these, and then we'll talk about how this works. Okay, here it is. So here's the research station. Let me first talk about how this works, and then we'll come back to the HPCA, which is slightly more complicated. So the research station, if you take a look at a recipe, there is a usage, power usage given. There's also a minimum computation and a total computation. The max EU is just how much EU it's going to use if you finish the computation as fast as possible, or at the minimum rate, so as slow as possible. For each overclock over this tier, we get a slight discount in the amount of computation, total computation required, but to be honest, I don't care about that, and we don't really need to think about that. So the input item goes into the object holder, along with a data orb to capture the scan, and the progress of the research is entirely determined by computation work units. That's the CWU, or computation, that I talked about when we looked at EMI. That comes in through the computation data reception hatch. How do we get computation? That's what the HPCA is for. This has a computation data transmission hatch. So this generates computation work units, transfers it to the research station, and that gives progress to the scan. This, by the way, is exactly how the LHC in GTNH works, but for particles. Little self-promo there, because I made that. Anyway, the high performance computation array, it's kind of modular. You can set this up how you want. So there's two types of HPCA components. There's cooler components, or cooling components, and there's computation components. There are more than just these three variants, but these are the three that I have access to right now. The computation components cost energy to run, and they create heat. As you can see, it says requires up to 2 cooling. So I have 4 of these. I'm going to place these. I don't think it matters what the orientation is. It just needs to be present in this 3x3x1 volume. So these computation components, when the multi is formed, will provide 16 computation work units per tick each. They're going to cost 4 amps of LUV to operate. So actually my one LUV hatch here is not good enough. I'll upgrade that. And this also generates 8 heat, because each one of these needs 2. To deal with this heat, there are 2 options at the moment. There's the heatsink component, which is passive cooling. It provides 1 cooling and you don't have to do anything, and it's just free 1 cooling. That's obviously not enough. I'm gonna place it anyway, because I do need to fill up the full space. So now I have 8 heat generated and 1 heat dissipated. So that's still not enough. There's also the HPCA active cooling component. This uses energy and it requires PCB coolant. That's just consumed. And this provides 2 cooling for each one of them. So now the multi-block is formed. And now I'm at a net -1 heat produced, which is basically 0 heat produced. So this should work. You can also see a full summary by hovering over this square in the middle in the controller. Cooling demand 8, cooling available 9, and I need 32 millibuckets of PCB coolant per tick. It also needs quite a bit of power, so I need to upgrade this energy hatch, which I will do right now. I'll also get AE2 over here. Should be pretty easy. And I'll supply PCB coolant. And I'll connect this up. Oh, I never talked about how to connect that. Very simple, optical fiber cables. Same thing that we use for the data bank to assembly lines. So we connect these two, and then I can do research. All right, everything's set up. Look at this. This is cool. Looks nice. The first thing I'm going to scan is the whole reason I even did all of this. If you remember, it was to make the Supreme combustion modules. I should probably look into all the other things that I need for the modules. It looks like mostly enriched NAC, so it should be fine though. The controller needs an Unreal combustion module scan, so I'm going to grab one of these. It needs 24 computation work units per tick. I make 16. Okay, I need to make a second HPCA. This does mean I can show you how bridging works. So, okay, I actually do have a little more prep to do. I will be right back. Oh man, I didn't notice this. The HPCA bridge component, which I need to get up to 24 computation work units, this needs UV circuits, which is like fine, I can do it, but it's not what I wanted to do today. I said I wanted to do the modular combustion frame today, but it's starting to look more and more like that's a next episode thing. I can do the UV circuit now. It is totally possible, I think. I first need to handle raw crystal chips. Let's just quickly take a look then, because I don't think it's going to be too difficult, and I don't think there's that much new, so I could kind of just bang it out, I think. So this needs a research scan with 16 computation work units. That's totally fine. Nothing new here. The crystal supercomputers are also easy to make. The crystal processor assemblies are easy to make. Crystal processors themselves are also easy to make. Crystal CPU needs engraved crystal chips, which needs raw crystal chips and emerald plates. And raw crystal chips is a loop, very easily done. I need to get my first raw crystal chip using exquisite emeralds, and then I can get the rest using raw crystal chip parts. So there's a loop here. I can forge hammer one chip into 9 parts, and then I can autoclave each part into a raw crystal chip. So this ultimately ends up being 144 millibuckets of europium equals 8 raw crystal chips. I'm gonna handle this by kind of abstracting away the loop here. I'm just going to have a pair of machines, an autoclave and a forge hammer. I'm gonna put them somewhere here in autocrafting, and the inputs are gonna be europium and the outputs are going to be the chips. That way I don't have to do any weird level maintaining loop stuff, and then sometimes it breaks, sometimes it doesn't. This is gonna be 100% reliable. Finally, I will also need multi-layer fiber reinforced printed circuit boards, which are just the next step of evolution of the fiber reinforced circuit boards. Needs palladium, sulfuric acid, and some platinum. So actually, not too bad. I'm gonna get my bridge components. I really want to do the MCF today. Here is the raw crystal chip loop. It has to be done in a clean room. And basically what I have is I have the pattern for 144 millibuckets of liquid europium to 8 raw crystal chips. And I've scaled it up a bit. Fluid gets put in. There are some crystal chips being moved in circulation already. It's not actually going to start outputting chips until this input bus is full of input and this output bus is full of output. So I need to build up to that a little bit. I could probably get away with smaller input and output buses, but I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm prioritizing filling up the loop first by putting this storage bus at a higher priority than this output storage bus that sends things back into the mainnet. And yeah, this just works. This should just work anyway. I think I will swap out these input buses to be a bit smaller so I can get the loop fully saturated pretty quickly. And that's basically the only interesting or unique thing about this. The rest is just kind of usual progression, which I covered just now. So I will blitz through all of this and I will be back with the first UV circuits. Okay, I had a realization. earlier I said I need the crystal processor mainframes to make the bridge components, so I can use a network switch to combine the computation units. Well, I did mention the network switch, but that's what it was for. The network switch, however, it requires tritanium and duranium in this wire, which means it's actually gated behind Mark II fusion and tier 3 reflector casings. That is much more infra than I expected to need for the Supreme Combustion modules, but I think I might be saved by this thing, the HPCA Advanced Computation Component. This does 16 computation each, so I can put in up to 3 of them in one HPCA. That's a lot of power costs, but it's just for research, it's not going to be running all the time. This looks a lot more craftable. The only thing I haven't looked at yet is, can I make ZPM field gens? And this is the moment of truth. I can. Oh, saved. Absolutely saved. I totally can. Okay, first research that I wanted to do with the research station is crystal processor supercomputer into crystal processor mainframe. However, this needs a ZPM energy hatch. So I have to make that first. So this will be the first scan. This needs 8 computation per tick, which I have. I have 16, which also means I can do the crystal mainframe. This needs LUV voltage, so that's fine, and an energy hatch. And then to actually make the energy hatch, the ZPM one, I do need to make some ZPM voltage coils, which I will do by hand in my single block ZPM assembler. And everything else is pretty chill. After that, I can also upgrade my machines to ZPM, so I don't need to use the single block anymore, and I can stop complaining about it until the next tier. And more importantly, I can get my crystal mainframes. So let's scan this LUV energy hatch. And it's going. I think it's really cool that the progress bar in Wayla is a different color. That's a really nice touch. I think that's awesome. Nice. We'll pick up next time. Next time for sure, modular combustion frame. Thank you for watching this episode of the HamCorp training manual. In the next episode, we will get to the modular combustion frame. For real. The planning department has been turned into bone meal for failing to look deeply into the modular combustion frame's requirements and for leading viewers on for most of the video. See you next time.